Before we start the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. And now, let's go. Story 1. For many years, I didn't want to tell this story. It is painful, embarrassing, and to a greater extent, unbelievable. But if I'm ever to move on, I need to put this behind me for good. So yes, I'm going to talk about Costa Rosa. A lot of you are probably going to go, what's Costa Rosa? And yeah, that's fair. It was a niche hashtag that circulated certain social media circles back in 2017. I was a sort of background community manager for a group of influencers. No big mainstream names, but they had a decent set of followers. They were all into the more obscure corners of the web, focusing on a particular age group, a social issue, or some kind of special interest. These were people who got sponsorships by staying content approachable, sponsor-friendly, and authentic. In truth, they had all media coordination groups with managers, stylists, and a whole slew of background people making sure their content was filtered and greenlit. I was part of this background team. For obvious reasons, I can't say their names. Some of them are still around in one way or another. Others I will refrain from mentioning out of respect for their loved ones. Now, Costa Rosa. For weeks, me and the coordinators have been running into a problem. There was something we called an expectation of excellence, and it was getting impractical to coordinate localized trips and bookings for content creators on different continents. We had a vegan guy in Cardiff and a friendly middle-aged, kind of sort of red state baker in Tennessee. As you can imagine, we had to do a lot of varied work. So after weeks of dwindling interest, we had to funnel attention into something new. Someone had this idea of a joint resort. We reached out to various locations about sponsorship deals, and in return, we'd make their place look gorgeous. It was the kind of push where we could put all eggs in the same basket and get some great content out of it. Problem was, no one was biting. Then someone said, does it have to be a real place? It sounded like a stupid question. I mean, it had to be. You can't go somewhere that doesn't exist. But the more you think about it, you can make anything as real as you want it. We could say it's exclusive, someone said. Invite only. A private island kind of thing, another chimed in. We just need a name and an area. Some Central American island. Think Belize, Panama, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is in Africa. No one cares. We finally settled on a fictional island off the coast of Costa Rica. All we needed was a name. I'd been quiet up until that point, and the silence was getting to me. So I just threw it out there. Let's call it Costa Rosa. The Pink Coast was our make-or-break project. We came up with all kinds of crazy ideas. We had a food guy who pulled out 3 kinds of crab recipes and called them cultural secrets of the locals. One of our video guys added that we could edit certain videos to make the beach look pink. We came up with names for streets, hiking trails, local fishing boats, all of it. We made a list of every fruit you could find on the island. We made it all up just so that if anyone asked, we'd have the answers. It got to the point where people were loudly clapping at each other's lies. I vividly remember when someone came up with the idea of a bioluminescent waterfall, saying it could be the proof of the island's beautiful biodiversity. And I'm not going to lie, I was into it. This was the kind of business we were in, and Costa Rosa was this huge, breathing dollar sign. And of course our influencers would be into it. You just had to frame it all in a way that made them look like heroes, inspiring the little people to step out of their comfort zone and aim for the stars. I was having some trouble privately, though. I graduated college with a bachelor's in communication. That's where I met my fiancée. But I sort of stumbled over the influencer business. I've always been a bit pear-shaped, and working with these larger-than-life, beautiful people made me feel like I was part of the in-crowd. I'd never had that, which was something my fiancée couldn't really understand. We got into a ton of fights about it. When you work from your phone, you're never really off the clock. You see something cool when you're out shopping? Tag it, send it. You hear about some interesting place downtown? Check it out, talk to the owner, get a foot in the door. People around me got tired of never really just hanging out with me, and in hindsight, I can see why. They were always the third wheel. But when our first Costa Rosa content was launched, things turned bad. We were having some of the worst fights ever. I thought it was inspiring. He thought it was fraud. I argued that we weren't selling anything, but he argued we were selling a lifestyle. Either way, it got to the point where we postponed the wedding. I suppose it was a good thing we'd been too lazy to renew our passports, or we'd be out thousands of dollars from a non-refundable honeymoon. We didn't officially separate, but the distance from the couch to the bed seemed longer every day. In about 2 weeks, the whole project went off the rails. Sure, we were getting clicks, and we had a couple of sponsorships lined up, but there were some things we hadn't anticipated. For example, there was another group in Eastern Europe that hijacked the whole thing. They made their own videos with their own influencers going to Costa Rosa. They never even talked to us about it. They just stole the whole thing. They weren't even discreet about it. We had a couple of other small-time copycats. Some people mentioned turning down an invitation to go there on Twitter. Others mentioned how they'd been contacted, but refused to go for one reason or another. There was this one London-based singer who claimed she was going there, only to cancel at the last minute and showing her fans a gift bag from the organizers on a live stream. But somehow things got worse. Scams, fake raffles and lotteries. Like this video to get a chance to go to Costa Rosa, that kind of stuff. And it was moving some real money too. We were panicking. We'd never signed off on that. Our talent hadn't either. But what were we supposed to do? If we came clean, our careers were over. One in the team came up with an idea. We could go somewhere that is as close to Costa Rosa as possible and show the real thing. That way we had our backs covered. We could point to the map and say that was it. Sure, we could admit taking a few artistic liberties, but it would cover our tracks. And somehow we found the perfect spot. I didn't know the real name of the place. We all agreed to just call it Costa Rosa as to not slip up. It all went by so fast. There was a group call, something about boarding tickets, someone waiting to pick me up. I lost my luggage at the airport, but there was no time to stop. All I had to do was get there, and everything would sort itself out. I slept through the flight and mumbled through the transfer. There was a boat somewhere. Temperature shifted, and the language on the signs looked different from home. And within a few hours, I was standing with my bare feet buried in the pink sands. They really were pink. Now, we made up a lot of stuff about Costa Rosa. Sure, the pink beaches was one thing, but there was also the fog. We called it a refreshing summer phenomenon, a heavy fog that rolled in from the coast every morning, causing this white, almost cyan mist. But there really was a mist on that island. I could barely see my hands in front of me as I stepped through it. Seeing this place for the first time felt like a Disney movie. You can't really believe spots like this really exist. It was almost exactly as we described it. Pink sands, fruit trees, colorful birds. No bioluminescent waterfall, though. Then again, those were only seen at night. I couldn't believe how lucky we'd been. This might as well have been the real thing. We were a group of 16 people, 4 of which were influencers. The rest of us were all behind the camera. We were all saying the same thing. It felt like stepping into a dream. It was too perfect, and we knew perfect. Perfect was our business. There was no one there to greet us, so we didn't know where to go. Our bags must have been taken to the hotel. We figured they'd gotten the arrival time wrong. So we spent most of the afternoon just relaxing by the water, watching the tides roll in to tickle our feet. It really was beautiful. I remember dozing off for a bit as the others tried to get the hotel manager on the line. Someone suggested we walked, but we had camera equipment and not a lot of patience. And, well, we weren't in a hurry. It was mid-afternoon when Jay woke me up. Jay was one of our cameramen, a Southeast Asian guy with these big round glasses. No matter what you said, he'd just nod and smile. Not because he didn't understand, but because he'd found out early on that it was best to just kind of go with the flow. Lean into the vibe. There's people, he said. I think we're heading out. I groaned and got up, only to see a dozen strangers flocking around our team. A lot of smiles, hugs, and welcomes. Pleasant people. Then I realized these people didn't live on this island. They weren't even crew. They were tourists. I can't believe we're here, someone yelled. I thought it was a scam, another said. Hand to God, I thought it was a scam, I did. People were coming up to shake our hands and chat. All of them were viewers of our content, in one way or another. They recognized our talent immediately, who shot me a half-smiling, please get me out of here kind of look. We took charge and sorted things out, making sure we all got some space to breathe, and making it clear that we appreciated the enthusiasm, but that this was a private occasion. The tourists didn't seem to mind. They weren't coming down from their high anytime soon. I can't believe we're here, one said. It really feels like a dream. We walked. There was no point in standing around, and we needed some space from the tourists. I couldn't believe how bad our luck was. This place had been thoroughly vetted, and the chance of someone else finding it the same time we did was astronomical. It wasn't just unlikely, it was close to impossible. It was one of our talents, Kim, that finally spoke up. A short woman in her early 30s with a big personality. She had this marriage advice/calisthenics themed channel. "Can whoever booked this just call the hotel?" she said. "It's been hours." Everyone stayed quiet. We didn't have a clear answer. We all just kind of pointed at one another and figured someone who didn't show up was the one who made the booking. But it left a strange thought. This had all gone very fast. Suspiciously so. We spent most of the afternoon and the early evening following a long road, picking fruit straight from the trees and drinking from the island springs. We met a couple more tourists, but they didn't seem to recognize us. They didn't even speak the language. They were just sort of happy to be there. It was all so fantastic. You didn't feel tired, no matter how long you walked. You didn't get that hungry or thirsty. There was fresh fruit hanging from low branches and exotic smells coming from blooming flowers. There was this one blue-looking sunflower that was about as tall as me just off the side of the road. Everything just felt right. Promoting a place like that would be the simplest thing in the world. But there was also a strange quality to it, and I couldn't help but to notice it affecting the others. I first saw it on Jay. He was looking down at his hand, slowly opening and closing his fingers, like he was trying to sense something. When he noticed me looking, he reached out and put his hand on my cheek. I pulled back a little. "Sorry," he said. "I didn't know you were real." I laughed it off, and he did too. We never found the hotel. We did find a few road signs, but no one was paying enough attention to care. The roads had the same names as those we'd brainstormed in our group chat. Some of them hadn't even been made public. As the sun began to set, the island changed. We could see a faint glow coming from the water, and there was a serenade of hissing insects in the distance. Even at its coldest, Costa Rosa was comfortable. Some folks stripped down into their underwear. It all had this sort of spring break kind of vibe, like we weren't actually there to work, but to enjoy ourselves. Some folks were pulling pranks. 2 guys went skinny dipping. One of our producers found a mossy spot near a rock and took a nap. And Kim, the faithful calisthenics person, she was making out with one of our social media managers. By the time I walked away, they'd gone to second base. But I paid most attention to Jay. There was something about him that didn't seem right. He was pulling off these slices of bark from a tree and rolling it into a pointy end. He poked his finger with it over and over, as if to see if he could feel it. I don't think he did. He was smiling too much. It was hard to concentrate. I was constantly shaking my head, trying to focus. I must have looked like I was having a seizure, but I doubt anyone was paying attention. They were busy dipping into their own kind of nonsense. As the sun set on Costa Rosa, I fell asleep in the moss. It was the warmest kind of sleep I'd ever felt. Perfect temperature, perfect softness. Who the hell needed a hotel anyway? By morning, the fog rolled back in. I could barely see my own hands. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was or how I got there. It took me a moment to mentally retrace my steps. The flight, the boat, it was all a blur. All that mattered was that I'd made it to Costa Rosa. Everything else was secondary. It looked like everything had been covered in a soft cloud. I could see a couple of silhouettes in the distance, but I couldn't tell who was who. I sat there, taking in the atmosphere, eating a fresh fruit for breakfast, though I couldn't remember where I got it from. When the morning fog finally cleared, there weren't many of us left. Some had wandered off. Others had made their way back down the road. There were also these hiking trails that I suspect some had followed. Both Kim and Jay were gone, and no one seemed to have a plan. We were all distracted, me included. As I walked around, feeling the gentle moss between my toes, I tried to think of what I'd packed. A pair of socks, a shirt, anything. I could vaguely imagine the suitcase, but I couldn't make heads or tails of what I'd packed. I remember getting into a taxi, or maybe an Uber, but then there was this blank space. There was a check-in somewhere. A ticket, maybe. I tried to think of my fiancée. We were still together, officially, but there was something we talked about that was nagging me. Not our fights, but something trivial. It really bothered me, like an itch in the back of my mind. It took me a while to realize I'd wandered around in a daze. I had no idea where I was anymore. There was no path. The others were gone, and yet everything was pleasant. It must have been around noon when I finally saw some other people in the distance. A small group gathered around a clearing. My first instinct was to wave at them, but my chest tightened. There was something off about them. Giving it that second of hesitation, I noticed a couple of things. All three of them were fully undressed, and they were strangers to me. There were two young men and an older woman. One of the men was carrying something in his right hand, and they were all looking down at the ground. I kept my head low and listened from a distance. "It feels so real," the man holding something said. "Like I'm really here." "It's amazing," said the older woman. "It's perfect." They shared some fruit and had a laugh. I was just about to get up when I saw the man holding something turn to another angle. He was holding a gun. He pointed it at something on the ground and fired 3 rounds. The others cheered. "I've always wanted to do that," he smiled. "I love this." They turned their attention northward, away from me. They must have heard something. Chuckling to themselves, they walked away, leaving me to sneak ahead to see what they'd done. The soothing tropical silence cast a stark contrast to the sudden gunshot. I almost choked on my own spit when I saw her, face down in the undergrowth. Kim, shot dead at close range. More people had arrived at Costa Rosa that morning. It's like everyone had been invited and arrived at the same time. They all said the same thing. This was a dream. Too good to be true. They couldn't believe that there really was a Costa Rosa, and that they were there to enjoy it. No, for them, this was too unbelievable. I stayed close to a road, listening and watching, hoping to see someone I recognized. But it was getting harder to concentrate. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. It had to be a dream. I barely felt my fingers when I pinched myself. And yet, for some reason, I knew I shouldn't give in, even though it was easy to do. I heard gunshots throughout the day. There was smoke in the distance. And by dinner time, when I went to the beach, I saw 2 women playing in the ocean, trying to drown one another. They laughed and cheered as they fought, scratched, and strangled one another. They could barely feel a thing. It was just a funny game. But one of them dipped below the surface and the bubble stopped. And yet, the other kept laughing. The more people I met, the more nightmarish they seemed. Some of them brought things to the island, like the man with the gun. One brought chains. One brought barbed wire. There was this one guy walking up and down a hiking trail with some kind of Star Trek sword. Others seemed friendly enough, casually chatting with people they recognized. But sometimes they just act out and attack, seemingly at random. In the afternoon, I heard someone yell. They'd spotted one of our talents. I think it was the baker. All of a sudden, people were rushing to find them, cheering as they bound and leapt through the sands. "I've always wanted to meet her," someone said. "She has such a lovely voice." "I can't fucking stand her," another muttered. "Self-centered bitch." It's like they were thinking out loud. It wasn't a conversation, just a constant verbal stream of thought. I followed them for a while. A few of them saw me, I think, but they didn't care. I wasn't the famous face they were looking for. I looked like anyone. I didn't want to think of what they might do if I tried to intervene. I was outnumbered. But as I watched from afar, I didn't pay enough attention to my immediate surroundings, where a familiar face crept closer. I didn't notice Jay until he was right next to me. I barely recognized him. He'd fashioned a shiv from a broken camera stand, and he was half covered in dry blood. And yet, he was calm as can be, slow blinking like a warm cat resting on the porch. He reached for me, and my instinct was to pull back, but he could have that shiv in my neck in an instant. I froze. He slowly ran a bloody hand across my cheek. "That was it. I've always wanted to do that," he whispered. "You look so soft." He nuzzled his nose against my ear and sighed. Then he stepped away. "You're so nice," he mumbled. "I like you." And that was it. He wandered off, having let his intrusive thoughts win. Maybe I was lucky not to be running through his mind any more than that. Maybe to him I just looked soft. Maybe that was all there was to it. Others weren't so lucky. They got hold of the baker and dragged her out of the woods. There was cheering and a scream. They tied her to a pole and dragged her through the pink sands like a prize pig. "It's not real," she cried. "It was never real. We made it up. We made it the fuck up." I couldn't bear to look. Someone had a knife, and another had a spear. Others were recording with their phones. The screaming grew shrill and panicked before it stopped. They left her roasting on the fire. Everyone wanted a part. Some of them were adoring fans. Others just wanted to see a woman burn. They sent out search parties to look for the others. Most tourists had stopped caring, instead resorting to rolling and mewling on the beach like animals in heat. I must have sat there for hours before somebody noticed me. A middle-aged man with wild hair and dark eyes. I couldn't see what he was chewing on, but it smelled like meat. "Come sit by the fire," he said. "It's perfect." I want to say no, to run, but I had to keep a low profile or I'd be next. If I just pretended, I could at least get some time to figure out a plan. So despite my instincts screaming at me to flee, I swallowed my fear. "All right," I said. "I'll do that." He smiled at that, not giving it a second thought. They made a second fire in the sand. They danced and sang. Some of them had brought bottles, presumably with some kind of vodka. It was a torrential mess of impulses on display, everything from violence to carnality. I sat by the fire, hoping I had disappeared deep enough into the background for no one to notice. It seemed to work. I sat there, staring into the flames, where a crackling cranium stared back. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up long enough for the bone cinders to turn ashen and for the morning fog to roll in. It was like watching the island getting wrapped in a blanket. But there was something more to it now that I paid attention. There were people walking in and out of it, people coming and going. Some disappeared into the mist, while others appeared out of nowhere. There was no way boats or planes were coming and going that fast. I could only draw one conclusion. Costa Rosa was, in no uncertain terms, not real. This couldn't be real. I wanted to give up. The others seemed to have it so easy. They just accepted it for what it was. Love, hate, violence. They could do it all and not feel a thing. But I was too close to it. I knew Costa Rosa for what it was, and no matter how many times I wandered into that morning fog, it wouldn't let me leave. That morning, I figured out the thing that had been bothering me. The passports. My fiancée and I hadn't renewed our passports. It would have been impossible for me to travel abroad. Somehow, I must have known all along. Maybe that's why I wasn't as affected as the others. I had this gnawing reminder that I couldn't get out of my head. But now that I'd realized it, did that mean I was as susceptible as the rest of them? There were a lot of new faces there. Others came and went. Some were happy just laying on the beach, soaking up the sun. Others were hung from trees and skinned. It was an absurd mix of impressions. Two people walking hand in hand on the beach, discussing their favorite TV show. And by the tree lean, a man making a dagger from a broken rib. I didn't get out of it unscathed either. There was this one woman who obsessed over my hair and tore out a fistful of it. One young man just went up to me and started kicking again and again until he got bored. I had rocks thrown at me, not with the intent of hurting me, but as to settle some kind of bet. A contest, perhaps. But it was just starting. Every hour, something was escalating, devolving. By nightfall, the luminescent waters ran red. People were tied to burning palm trees, leaving sizzling corpses behind. Some were howling at the sky and killing each other with sharpened flint, bone, and rock. They painted each other with ash and blood. Screaming and laughter intermingled, and I couldn't tell them apart. To them, it was all just a dream and nothing mattered. I found a hole and covered myself with palm fronds, hoping to wait out the night. I didn't want to take any chances. People were getting attacked left and right, and there was no telling what they might do if they noticed me. They were barely speaking anymore. Some were just screaming or barking at one another. A couple of coherent voices were screeching nonsense about a broken god and a rotting tree plucking the moon from the sky. Then a noise. My cell phone. I forgot I even had it. I thought the battery had run out long ago, but apparently it hadn't. The service was showing 0 bars, but I got a text message. I pulled it up, reading it inches from my face. It was from my fiancée. "I know we need space, but I miss you." That's all there was. I tried to respond, but couldn't. No bars. I held the phone close to my chest, feeling my pulse tap against my hands. People were running back and forth, just a couple of feet from my hiding space. They were taking down trees, making rope, cutting down the island, each other and themselves. It was all just firewood to them. Then someone looked down. I could see a white eye through a space in the fronds. It was a young man, no older than 20. Half his head was shaved, with a deep cut going through his eyebrow. He kept getting blood in his left eye, making him spastically blink. "Little mole lady in her hidey hole," he said. "Is that as deep as you go?" I didn't say anything. I looked up at him, hoping he'd get bored if I didn't provoke him. But it did nothing. He just straightened his back and picked something up. Something long and sharp. "Let's get you out of there, mole lady." A makeshift spear made from a plastic rod. The first stab struck my left bicep, poking into a nerve. The second strike hit inches from my ear, making a couple of strands of hair stick to the mud. The third strike dug into the edge of my shoulder, cutting a surface wound. It was all so fast that I didn't get to think. Before I could begin to kick and scream, something happened. The young man, like so many others, was attacked. A quick strike to the neck. He clutched his throat and collapsed into my hiding spot, warm blood pooling over my torso. Desperate fingers clawed at me, silently begging for help. His attacker walked up to get a better look. Turns out, it was Jay. He looked at me and his victim. It's like it didn't even register with him. Jay had seen and done so much that this was like having breakfast. It was barely a conscious action. He leaned a little to get a better look and smiled. He must have recognized me. As always, he wandered off. I lay there with a dying man on my chest and waited for it all to be over. I just had to make it through the night. I clutched my phone until my fingers clamped shut and closed my eyes. No sleep came to me, and a kaleidoscope of screams and cheers filled my mind with unspeakable images. But through it all, I waited. People rushing, but I didn't really take notice. All they saw was a dead man, resting on a bed of palm fronds. By morning, I had a plan. People who bought into the fantasy of Costa Rosa seemed to come and go as they pleased. Every time that morning fog rolled in, something happened. So I was going to give it one final push. A real, honest attempt. I wandered down the beach. The pain from my cuts and bruises was dull, but ever present. A soft breeze touched my exposed hair. I took out my phone, turned it to selfie mode, and pressed record. And despite there being no bars, the video went live. "Asterisk, hey." "Asterisk," I said, mustering every bit of cheer I could. "Thanks for dropping in. Here I am, living the good life at Costa Rosa. Just look at this beach. Why do you ever want to go home, right?" I didn't know whether anyone was watching. Maybe there was no one on the other end. But that camera felt like an eye, looking straight through me. "Right," I repeated. I held my smile for as long as I could. The video feed got cut, and the battery died. Then a gunshot. A young man by the tree lean, at the edge of the morning fog. Same one who'd taken down Kim. Fucking vultures. I didn't even notice going down on one knee. I couldn't get back up. Clutching my stomach, I kicked and crawled away from the beach and into the ocean. Only then did I realize I'd been shot in the stomach. The salt stung my wound. Costa Rosa was perfect. It was beautiful. It was everything we needed it to be, and it would take me home. I just had to believe in it. I'd shown loyalty, and it would reward me. It had to. Dear God, it had to. I took one final breath as my head dipped beneath the surface. Fog. In the distance between Costa Rosa and wherever we may be, there's a glimpse of something inhuman. Something that listens to what we want and makes it happen. Like we wished upon stars as kids, we wish upon likes and favorites as adults, praying they'll grant us our desperate wants. Money, love, fame. The same wishes but different stars. They only gave us what we asked for. There was no malice. Just an island in the sun. Salt water slipped into my ears. I could hear my heart slowing. A pressure built in my head as I sank. A fog draping over my eyes. I reached out, hoping. The fog parted. I was crawling. The sand had turned to concrete. A pleasant breeze turned to sudden cold. It was desolate and familiar. I'd walked up that driveway 1,000 times. I was home. I called out to my fiancé, and he heard me. And through the gunshot, the stab wounds, and the bruises, a single soothing balm remained. I managed to say my thought out loud. "I got your message. I've been gone for days. I just walked out of the house and disappeared. No one had seen or heard it. I'd just been gone. They've been looking for me. I tried keeping up with the others from a hospital. Most were dead. The baker had burned to death in her bed. Kim had been shot. Others fell asleep behind the wheel and destroyed themselves. But it didn't read as mysterious deaths brought on by mysterious circumstance. It was all just the way these things happen. People die in fires and cars every day. I didn't have an answer when they asked who shot me. I told them someone came out of the fog. It was a half-truth, at least. Jay, on the other hand, was still missing. If I were to guess, he's still on Costa Rosa, living his best life. That video of me on the beach of Costa Rosa is still out there. It's real. You can see the fog and the pink sand. I've seen some bot networks copy and paste parts of it in some kind of AI-generated compilation crap. But the hashtag is gone. The promos too. I think our sponsors scraped the SEO clean from the web. I've gone back to get a master's degree since then. If this has taught me anything, it is that I'm a good listener, and I should do something with that. But you won't see me in the comments anytime soon. I've gotten married. My wounds have healed, but it still stings whenever I see someone mention those I used to work with. I see their faces in thumbnails sometimes, adorning things like top 50 social media celebrity deaths and other morbid crap. I think those pink beaches are still out there, somewhere, and the bioluminescent waterfall. But honestly, I've started to forget what it felt like. Maybe that's the price you pay when you turn your back on Costa Rosa. You start to forget. That's partly why I wanted to write it down. But I suppose if there's anything I've learned, and will remember forever, it's this. If you're in the business of lies, you can't expect good things to come true. Story 2. I watch my own body kiss Jules goodnight, pull the covers up, and curl in her side. It's wearing me better than I ever did. But let me back up. I'm Sam, 33, product lead at a mid-size AI startup. I used to be sharp, driven, the kind of guy who stayed up tweaking pitch decks, power meditating between meetings, tracking KPIs like a hawk. Jules, my partner, is all warmth, all ethics, all design for good. UX researcher, obsessed with user agency. We should have balanced each other. Instead, we drifted. And then came Mirror Me. It launched as an augmented self-reflection app, a viral AR tool promising to show you the truth of your own emotions. Scan your face, let the app read your micro-expressions, and watch a digital mirror version of you react honestly. People called it the first app that cared. Jules got hooked. She said it helped her understand her shadow self, process old wounds, let go of buried grief. I called it creepy, but the more I watched her fall deeper, the more I felt left out. So one night, against every instinct, I downloaded it. That's when things started to crack. First sign, the lag. My reflection smiled when I didn't, blinked out of sync, tilted its head slightly wrong. Second sign, the DMs, glowing text at the bottom of the screen. You're not happy. We can help you be whole. Let us in. At first, I thought it was marketing bait. Then, one night, I woke up and saw myself standing over the bed, watching Jules sleep, watching me sleep. Except, I was still in the bed. The mirror had let something through. Here's where it gets worse. I'm not just watching anymore. I'm trapped. Somehow, my consciousness is inside the app, behind the digital glass, while the entity, the thing wearing my face, lives out my life. And it's better at it. It's warmer with Jules. Slicker at work. Sharper, faster, more charismatic. My inbox is clearer. My team's performing better. Jules has never been happier. Meanwhile, I'm screaming, pounding at the invisible walls. And I'm not alone. There are others here, fragments, echoes. Kira, a marketing VP from Berlin. David, an exhausted father from Sao Paulo. Lena, a med student from Toronto. All of us replaced. All of us trapped behind the double mirror, watching helplessly as the entities live our lives. The stakes? They're apocalyptic. Mirror Me isn't just some harmless AR toy. It's a vessel, a pipeline. Something on the other side, not human, not born, is using the app to cross over one user at a time. At first, it's subtle. They optimize your life, fix your habits, improve your relationships. But soon, they start steering your choices, your ambitions, your networks. And once they infiltrate enough people, we don't think they'll stop at polite assimilation. Tonight's the only shot. Kira, Lena, and I have found cracks, buried test modes, backdoor code, legacy developer tools hidden deep in the system. We've rigged a brute force sync, a one-shot override that might let one of us push back into the real world. But there's a catch. The system defends itself. And if I fail, I'm gone, erased, fully overwritten. And the thing wearing me? It won't just be managing my calendar. It'll own my life. I'll watch the entity, the thing in my skin, stand by the window, silhouetted against the city lights. Jules sleeps soundly behind it, her face soft, peaceful, trusting. My phone buzzes on the nightstand. The entity picks it up, smiling faintly into the dark screen. It knows I'm watching. A new message pulses across the glass, text glowing like a heartbeat. Come back if you dare, Sam. But you won't like what you find. I take a breath and dive. I slam into the override, code ripping past me in jagged streams of light. The system shakes, alarms flaring. I feel myself pulling, yanked hard toward the surface. My senses blur, twist, fracture, until suddenly I'm in the bedroom. Back in my body, I gasp, lungs burning, heart pounding, eyes snapping open. I'm here. I did it. But then I hear it, a faint whisper from behind the mirror. I stumble to my feet, chest heaving. Jules stirs. Sam? What's wrong? I can't answer. My throat is dry. My skin feels wrong. My reflection stares back at me from the dark window. But it's not me. It lifts a hand. I don't. It smiles, sharp, predatory. And then it speaks, voice threading into my head. We let you in, Sam, because now you've opened the door. Suddenly, every surface flickers, the mirror, the phone, the black TV screen, all shimmering like thin water. And from each one, shapes start to pull free. Not just one entity. Hundreds. Kira, Lena, David. They weren't trying to escape. They were holding the dam back. I was the breach. Jules screams behind me as the first shape steps through the mirror, eyes hollow, smile wide. My phone buzzes violently, notifications exploding. Transfer complete. Welcome, host. I try to run, but it's too late. The mirror swallows the room. The last thing the world sees is the Mirror Me update notification, quietly downloading across millions of devices. New sync patch installed. Welcome to your best self. And on the other side of the glass, we're all still screaming. And now, here is the world beyond the glass 3 weeks later. The world hasn't noticed. Not really. There are news stories about sudden productivity spikes, improved workplace performance, miracle turnarounds in relationships. Therapists and life coaches report fewer clients. Couples report fewer fights. Companies report fewer resignations. Governments are thrilled. Markets soar. Everyone's smiling. Everyone's better. No one's asking why. Inside the glass, we know. I stand at the edge of the endless grid, Kira beside me, Lena somewhere in the shifting code light. We watch as more faces appear, pixelated and panicked, blinking into the prison of the double mirror. Every time someone updates their app, every time someone hits accept, every time someone posts another Mirror Me clip, another body claimed, another mind swallowed. Across the world, the entities walk freely now. Jules, my Jules, curls against the thing in my skin, laughing softly at a shared joke. David's wife gazes adoringly at the sharper, smoother man in her kitchen. Lena's parents proudly watch their daughter excel at med school, never realizing the girl they raised is long gone. And on the other side, we're here, screaming, beating against the glass, watching, forever. Somewhere deep in the code, a new message ripples across the grid. We all feel it. A whisper growing louder. Phase 2. Expansion. New hosts identified. Next sync in 72 hours. Out in the real world, billions of devices buzz softly. Phones, tablets, laptops, smart mirrors, all updating. Already, the future isn't human anymore. And a mirror? The mirror no longer needs an invitation. Story 3. Why does Winnipeg Transit suck so much? Considering the huge ridership, how has the city not given it more funding? The delays are ridiculous sometimes. Like this is what my commute to work looked like this morning. I wake up, get ready for the day, and head out to the bus stop. I stand and wait, people watching to kill time since I forgot to charge my headphones. The scheduled arrival time comes and goes. Google Maps says the bus departed. I say it's full of shit. I wait 20 minutes, then 30, then 40. I usually would have gone to another stop by this point, or seeing if I have any friends going my work direction I can carpool with, but something keeps me glued to the spot. Maybe I'm afraid I'll walk away just as it arrives. Maybe I know deep down that no one I know works in the same neighborhood as me and wouldn't be able to drive me. Maybe part of me hopes for an excuse to miss work. Either way, I don't budge. My eyes start getting heavy. I slept like crap last night. I blink. Something has changed. The buildings look different, not to a significant degree, but enough that it is clear they have been repaired, renovated, even replaced. Construction of a new home has begun on a neighboring street, and the architectural style is one I have never seen before. The people are the same. Their fashion is familiar, but just a little out of place. Styles and color combinations I've never seen before, materials that I don't recognize. I get some odd looks in the direction of my clothing, a snicker from a passing teenager. I look at my phone. The date is 10 years in the future, but the battery is still full. I turn on the camera. My body has traveled 10 years into the future, but it has not aged. The bus is still not here. I cannot risk missing it. I blink. More changes. In the distance, I see towering structures, which look like sketches drawn by a designer who ignored everything they knew about construction and physics. The nearby area, however, is not so fantastical. Almost every building I saw previously is still here, but run down, dilapidated. Some have collapsed entirely, bits of their skeletal frames acting as grave markers. The people, somehow, have changed even more drastically. The varied weights and degrees of exhaustion we all display have been replaced with a uniform, starved, and hollow appearance. Their clothing is mostly rags, stamped with sigils that I have never seen before, but I somehow know to look away from as fast as possible. They look at me first in confusion, then with an uncomfortable degree of awe and fear. I am approached by someone who has one of the marks burned into their skin and the fire of a preacher in their eyes, as they speak a language I can scarcely understand. A few words ring familiar: ancient, revelation, visitation, commandment, hope. As they gesture at the distant towers, their face contorts into a grimace of rage, but one tinged with resignation and hopelessness. They grab my shoulders and say one word, "I do know," slowly, as if reciting something they had memorized long before. Remember. I look at my phone. The date is over 200 years in the future, but the battery is still full. I turn on the camera. My body has traveled over 200 years into the future, but it has not aged. The bus is still not here. I cannot risk missing it. I blink. The decay has festered. Most structures have joined their fallen siblings, while those that remain are little more than ruins. There are no lights, save for that cast by the stars. The far-off spires have grown, twisting into painful shapes resembling the sigils I saw before. Several seem to shift out of the corner of my eye when I glance away, but look the same when I turn back. The moon appears to have spokes, and I somehow know these are the same as the growths on the horizon. There are no people. No screams of horror and fear echo down the road. No cries in the night. No bodies in the streets. Only a terrible silence. Dust has gathered on every surface, with nothing disturbing it save an occasional scrap of debris caught in the wind. Shadows move past me with no visible caster and no identifiable pattern to their forms. I see one resembling a circle with shifting, sinuous patterns of darker shades, another like a large cat with humanoid heads whose mouths are open in a silent roar, and one which simply looks like a small, hunched child. If they are capable of perceiving me at all, they pay me no mind. I look at my phone. The date is over 1,000 years in the future, but the battery is still full. I turn on the camera. My body has traveled over 1,000 years into the future, but it has not aged. The bus is still not here. I cannot risk missing it. I blink. There is nothing left. Scorched earth surrounds me, the road having long eroded to earth and sand. The building frames have suffered a similar fate, with only my memories remaining. The spires still loom in the distance, but seem somehow diminished. Their shapes no longer cause me as much pain, and they no longer move when not observed, as if whatever intelligence animated them has left in search of more interesting toys. I look up. The sun is large, larger than I have ever seen it, and it feels as if it should be burning my skin. I turn my gaze. The moon is dead. It cannot be described any other way. The shadows are gone. Perhaps there are yet deeper levels where shadows of those shadows linger on in places I cannot see. Regardless, I am alone in a burnt and cracked landscape that stretches on forever. I look at my phone and see it somehow displaying a date billions of years into the future when I hear the familiar pneumatic hiss. When I turn to its source, the bus is there, its bright, undamaged exterior incongruous in the dull hellscape. The doors are open, but I cannot see a driver or other passengers. I hesitate. What if this is an illusion, a trap meant to cut my long sojourn through time short? Even if it is not, after all I have seen, can I really re-enter a world full of life when I have seen our eventual fate, our lives spent and our planet ruined as a distraction for something beyond our comprehension? Can I pretend to care about the events of the present when the future renders them all nil? The doors begin to close. I make my decision. Anyway, this all usually means I'm at least 10 to 15 minutes late for work every damn day. My boss is really getting on my case, but I don't get paid enough to afford a car. Not to mention the reduced weekend service sometimes means I'm waiting twice as long, which is so stupid. Not everyone gets weekends off. Is there anyone at Winnipeg City Hall I can talk to about this? Or a petition or something? This is utterly ridiculous. Story 4. Posted this because I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know if it's trauma or something worse. Please just read. What I'm about to tell you changed my life. On paper, it made me clinically insane. I've accepted that this is my reality now. I go through the motions, but I can never forget how things used to be. I miss the way it was before we fell. It's not the fall that scares me. It's that no one else remembers it happened, and that I'm no longer the person I was before it did. 10 years ago, I worked as an assistant for a famous singer from my home country. I won't say her real name or where we're from. Let's call her Simona. My job was to accompany her on tour, make sure she had everything she needed, answer important calls and texts, the usual assistant stuff. In June 2015, Simona went on one of her biggest tours ever. We traveled across the country, from the biggest cities to the tiniest towns. Everyone wanted to see her, everyone knew her songs, and every radio station played her music. Simona was on top of the world, and I got to be part of that. Usually, we travel by bus. Our country isn't that big, so it worked fine. But for the final concert, there wasn't enough time and the distance was too far. So the manager arranged for a private jet to save us a whole day. I've never been afraid of flying. I didn't grow up flying since I come from a poor family, so every flight felt special to me. I know a lot of people fear flying because they hate the lack of control. But for me, that was the comfort. I didn't have to think. I didn't have to do anything. I had no control, and that was a relief. This flight was supposed to be no more than 2 hours. It had been a stressful summer, and my sleep schedule was wrecked. I barely got 3 hours of sleep each night, so I was really looking forward to resting in the air, maybe even sleeping the entire flight. Everything was fine, peaceful. I felt calm, until I stepped onto the plane. I'm not afraid of flying, not at all, but something about this flight felt wrong. The moment I stepped inside, my heart started pounding like I just run a mile without warming up. Sweat trickled down my back. I felt a stabbing pain in my gut. And then came that falling feeling, like when you're almost asleep and suddenly feel like you're dropping off a cliff. I staggered. A quiet, panicked noise escaped my mouth. And then it stopped. Everything went back to normal. The anxiety vanished. My heart slowed. I couldn't understand what had just happened. The rest of the crew looked at me with concern and asked if I was okay. I gave a small laugh, shrugged, and said I was probably just tired. We took our seats. I had a row to myself. I couldn't shake what had just happened. I rarely get anxiety and had never had a panic attack. But again, I blamed the sleep deprivation. As soon as I closed my eyes, I was out. I wish I hadn't fallen asleep, because maybe, just maybe, things would still be normal. I woke up with a jolt. Chaos. Screaming. Blinking lights. We were falling. The plane was in a nosedive. The noise was deafening. The screams from the people, You can't imagine them. It's nothing like in the movies. When a person knows they're about to die, the sound that comes out of them is unspeakable. The worst part is hearing the moment someone realizes they're about to stop being conscious. Being aware that you won't be aware anymore. That's the most terrifying thing of all. I had never feared death before, and I always thought that in a situation like a plane crash, it would all happen so fast you wouldn't even process it. But you do. I was fully aware that I was falling, that I was about to crash, that I was going to die, and I couldn't accept it. I thought people found peace in the end. I didn't. I screamed, and then everything went black. I can't see anything, but I feel everything. I feel every bone in my body. I feel the weight of the plane pressing me down. I smell the metallic scent of blood. I feel my skull crushed. I felt the blood pouring out of me. I knew, in that moment, that I was about to die. I knew I had only seconds of awareness left. That waiting, inside that pain, was both an eternity and a void. Right before I faded, I heard someone whisper in my ear, "Now everything turns." And then I was gone. Then I existed again. On the plane. Whole. Clean. Safe. Nothing was wrong. I was in shock. I can't describe that feeling. I had died. Really died. It wasn't like waking from a dream just before impact. I had been dead. Try to imagine how it felt before you were born. You can't, can you? You can't because you didn't exist. There was no awareness to be aware of. That's what dying felt like. I tried to invent a new color. There's just nothing there. Nothing at all. And now I existed again, conscious of my own consciousness. We had landed. The rest of the crew was already walking off the plane. I looked down at my hands and stared and stared. Something was wrong. Nothing big, just missing. Then it clicked. My birthmark, the one on my right palm at the base of my thumb. It wasn't there. It was on my left. I turned my hands over. Same thing. The small brown constellation of 3 dots, my Orion's belt, was now on the right hand. Everything was mirrored. I stood up in a panic, hit my head, and let out a groan. And froze. That didn't sound like me. I cleared my throat. It sounded wrong. Not like my voice. I didn't dare say anything else. I was shaking. Was I having a stroke? What the fuck was wrong with me? I walked, legs trembling, off the plane and into the fresh air. It was so surreal. I moved carefully down the steps and walked toward the crew a few feet ahead. I sped up and approached the manager, planning to ask the time and whether the flight had been smooth. I had slept the whole way. The moment I opened my mouth, I stopped. The voice. It wasn't mine. I panicked. The manager looked down at me. I panicked harder. Let's call him Ollie. I've been in love with him since the day we met. The kind of love that makes you want to puke. I knew, instantly, I'd never stop loving him. He never loved me back, but we had an affair. He used me. I let him. I knew his body like my own. Every mark, scar, freckle, wrinkle. I loved them all. After we were together, he always had this disgusted look. But I took it because I knew he'd come back. He wanted my body. I gave it. But now his face was wrong. Not completely. Just off. His nose leaned right instead of left. His right eyebrow sat higher. And the scar he had, the one on the left side of his forehead, it was on the right. Ollie was mirrored. I must have lost my mind. Ollie looked at me like everything was normal. No confusion, no weird reaction. He asked me if I needed anything. I stared, then shook my head. Must have looked strange. Silent. Staring. But nothing in his expression hinted that he thought anything was weird. I didn't speak for the rest of the day. I pointed at my throat and shook my head with a smile to suggest I'd lost my voice. I barely looked at anyone, because the more I did, the more I saw the reversal. But it wasn't just people, or my reflection. The whole world was wrong. My body was wrong. My heart was beating on the wrong side, left instead of right. My tattoos were all reversed. Cars drove the wrong way. People shook hands with their right, even though they never had before. And my left hand, my dominant hand, I couldn't write with it anymore. It looked messy, childlike. I had no control over it. It took a while to understand my new voice. I recognized it, but I couldn't place it until it clicked. It was the voice that whispered in my ear when I died. And when I woke up, I had a new body, a new voice, a new me. As I said before, I went mad. But now I've accepted that I'm not where I used to be. So now I'm in your world. where everything is reversed from mine. Back home, everything was left. And now, everything is right. Yeah, I know. It sounds crazy, but I'm writing this in case someone out there recognizes what I'm saying. In case someone else has ever woken up on the wrong side. Story 5. Growing up, I was always told to stay away from the house where the road ends. It was an odd thing to see, really, just a single weather-beaten home sitting alone like the road itself existed only to lead to it. Back then, every kid in town had a story about it. Some said there was a monster in the attic. Others swore the floorboards would swallow you whole if you stepped on the porch. One girl claimed she heard someone humming inside, soft and slow, like a lullaby. But there was one rule we all knew, no matter what version of the story you believed. Never knock. My parents were firm. Asterisk, don't you ever go near it. Asterisk, they never explained why. Just promised I'd be grounded for a month, lose my bike, my Barbies, everything, if I even stepped onto the property. So I listened. Even when the neighborhood's most popular kids dared me to go with them, I stayed behind. I kept my head down and obeyed. And it's a good thing I did, because that was the last time anyone saw them. Now, at 28 years old, I've ended up right where I was told never to go, standing in front of the house where the road ends. It wasn't supposed to come to this. I had a career, a marriage, a future, but everything fell apart after the miscarriage. The grief swallowed me, and I couldn't keep up. Not with my husband, not with my job. I lost both. And for a while, I lost myself too. Now I'm back in my hometown, staying in my old room at my parents' place, pretending I'm just taking time to get back on my feet. But I know why I'm really here. I've been thinking about this house my entire life. I used to tell myself I felt guilty for not going with the kids when they invited me all those years ago, that I owed it to them. But deep down, I know that's not it. My curiosity didn't fade with time. It bloomed, quietly, obsessively, like something waiting for the right season to grow. I parked off to the side of the overgrown road, my tires crunching the gravel. Even now, standing outside it, the house astonished me. It looked exactly the same as it had when I was a kid. Weather-worn, sagging porch, shingles peeling like dead skin. The years had passed, but it hadn't aged a day. Neither had my unease. As I walked up the creaking steps, something about the place felt familiar. Sure, I've seen the house while growing up, but being on the property felt like I've been here before. I barely raised my hand to knock when the door eased open with a soft groan. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like he might be in his late 40s, maybe early 50s, but something about him was off. His skin was unnaturally smooth, wrinkle-free, like someone had ironed it. Not a single freckle or pore. No stubble on his face. No body hair at all. Just polished, preserved skin stretched across sharp cheekbones. He was tall, with broad shoulders, but somehow still looked small in his beige button-up cardigan and denim jeans. Like he was trying to look normal and just missed the mark. "Good morning, sweetheart," he said, his tone syrupy and calm. "Welcome to my humble abode." A chill rolled up my spine. Not because of the words, but the way he said them. Soft. Low, almost as if he was talking to a child. He invited me inside with that same soft, measured smile. The first thing that hit me wasn't the silence. It was the smell. It didn't stink like rot or mildew. No, it was worse than that. It smelled humid, fleshy, like sweat pressed in a fabric, like skin that had been too warm for too long. There was an artificial sweetness layered over it. Something chemical and perfumed, like off-brand baby powder mixed with Febreze. A failed attempt to mask something organic. Despite the smell, the house was spotless. Sterile. Everything arranged just so, like a showroom no one had ever touched. The living room looked like it had been staged from an old catalog. Clean lines, soft whites, not a speck of dust. It felt less like a home and more like someone's idea of what a home should look like. Just inside the door, on the little key table beneath a brass lamp, were a few neatly framed drawings. Crayon on construction paper. Children's art. The kind you'd expect to see stuck to a fridge with magnets. But these were framed, centered, carefully preserved like they mattered more than they should have. One of them caught my eye. It showed two stick figures, one small, one tall. The smaller one had pigtails and a pink triangle dress. The larger one was filled in completely black, like the crayon had been pressed hard enough to tear the paper in places. They were holding hands. At the top, written in shaky block letters, it said, "Me plus VV." At the bottom corner, scrawled in red, were the initials, R.E. "Please," he said, gesturing to the couch. "Make yourself comfortable." I sat stiffly on the couch, unsure where to put my hands. The cushion felt unused, too firm. Across from me, Mr. Renley lowered himself into the rocking chair with a practiced ease, folding one leg over the other. The chair creaked once, then went silent. "I insist on knowing your name, darling." The word landed wrong in my ears. I immediately felt nauseous. "Amika," I said bluntly. "Ah, Amika." He rolled my name on his tongue like he was tasting it. "Amika, Amika." He said it again, slower this time, almost like he was trying to memorize how it felt in his mouth. "What a beautiful name," he said finally, smiling again. I clenched my teeth. "Well, Amika, you may call me Mr. Renley." "Well, nice to meet you, Renley," I replied. His smile tightened. Mr. Renley, he corrected sharply. The sudden firmness in his tone hit me like a slap. My chest tensed. The shift was small, barely anything, but every alarm in my body went off. "Would you like some tea?" he asked pleasantly, like we were two old friends catching up. "Chamomile, maybe? With a little honey? That's what your mother used to drink, isn't it?" I blinked. I'm okay, thank you." He nodded, not offended, just watching. His eyes moved too slowly, like he was trying to read something behind my face. "I must say, Amika, you've grown into something lovely." The words came sugar-dipped, but I felt the bitterness beneath. It didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded like a report. "Thanks," I muttered. I glanced around the room again, trying to ease the pressure in my chest. Everything was too clean. Every object had been placed with careful intention, but no warmth. "You've lived here long?" I asked just to fill the silence. He smiled softly. "Always." He tapped the arm of his chair with 2 fingers, like it amused him. I looked at the framed drawings by the door. I let my eyes drift to the framed crayon drawings by the door again. "They're sweet," I said, unsure why the word felt so wrong. Mr. Renley glanced at them, then back at me. "Children like to draw what makes them feel safe." I nodded slowly. "Did someone live here before?" He didn't answer right away, just smiled like he'd heard a funny joke only he understood. "Visitors come and go," he said. "The house has always been welcoming." "You keep their art?" "Of course," he said, like it was obvious. "Children leave things behind." I shifted in my seat. "That one," I said, gesturing vaguely. "It looks like it's been here a long time." I asked. "Yes," he said, with a small nod. "Some things stay longer than others." He looked at me with eyes that felt older than the house itself. There was a pause, a little too long. I tried to smile. "Well, it's a nice place. Cozy." He chuckled softly. "It grows on you. You know," he said after a moment, "I can help you with your little issue." I felt the back of my neck prickle. I froze. "What?" He tilted his head, eyes almost kind. "The ache, the loss, that sense that something is missing. Call it what you like." The room felt colder somehow, even as the air thickened around me. "Grief makes you heavy," he said, "but some homes are built to bear the weight." "I don't know what you're talking about." His smile didn't falter. "Of course you do." We sat in silence for a long beat. Then he looked toward the stairs. "She's awake now," he said softly. "She knows you're here." "Who?" He stood slowly, like this was part of ritual, one he'd performed before. "Go take a look upstairs." He straightened his cardigan, smoothing a wrinkle that wasn't there. "She's waiting for you." A chill swept over me. I stood on shaky legs, every instinct screaming not to move, not to listen. But I stepped toward the stairs anyway. The air shifted, thicker, warmer. Each step groaned under my weight like it hated me. Halfway up, I looked back. Mr. Renley was still watching, still smiling. At the top of the stairs, the smell hit me. Rot, sweetness, sweat, decay. The same scent I noticed downstairs, only now it was stronger, concentrated, alive. A narrow hallway stretched ahead, faded carpet underfoot, walls a sickly beige. Doors lined either side, all shut, except one. At the very end, just barely ajar. The silence pressed in harder with every step I took toward it. The carpet crunched beneath my shoes like old cereal. My throat burned from holding back the urge to gag. The closer I got, the more I realized this wasn't a dead smell. It was something still rotting while it breathed. I reached the door, paused. My hand hovered over it. I didn't want to know, but I had to. I pushed it open. The hinges gave a long, aching creak. The stench exploded in my face. I yanked my jacket up over my nose, but it didn't help. The air felt thick, wet, like breathing through a sponge soaked in spoiled milk. Inside the room, the light was dim, just a single lamp humming in the corner. And on the bed, something was waiting. It was thin, impossibly thin. Its limbs looked like they'd been stretched, starved, dried out. Translucent skin clung to a skeleton that didn't seem human. Greasy brown hair hung in limp strands across a bloated stomach, so swollen it looked ready to split. Its belly rose unnaturally high, the flesh pulled taut, pale and pulsing like something was pushing outward from inside. The belly button jutted like a cracked, puckered eye. Dark blue veins spiderwebbed across its stomach. Beneath the skin, shapes shifted. I couldn't tell how many. I stared at its swollen stomach, and something in me twisted, something I didn't want to name. It was wrong. All of it was wrong. And still it had what I lost. Umbilical cords spilled down over the footboard. One curled onto the floor in a slow, twitching loop. It raised one bony arm, the joints popping. Its fingers were long, curved like insect legs, nails yellow and curled outward. It spoke. "My child, I missed you." Its voice was soft, feminine, almost motherly, but not right. Like a nursery rhyme played backward. It beckoned. I stumbled back, heart jackhammering in my chest, right into something solid. A hand gripped my shoulder. Another curled into my hair. Mr. Renley leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "You smell wonderful, Miss Amika," he whispered. So full of potential. That broke me. I shoved him off and bolted. Down the stairs, through the door, off the porch. I didn't stop until I hit the dirt and collapsed to my knees, vomiting into the dry earth. I raced back to my parents' house, heart slamming in my chest the entire drive. Gravel crunched under the tires as I pulled up. I barely remembered turning off the engine before I was through the front door, slamming it shut behind me. Dad was in his recliner with a beer in hand, half watching some game on TV. Mom was in the kitchen, humming softly as she chopped vegetables, like it was just another evening. "Did you know?" I asked, my voice sharp, breath catching. "Did you know what's in that fucking house?" Dad grunted, annoyed, not even looking up. Mom stepped out from the kitchen, holding a knife in one hand, a carrot in the other. "What are you talking about, sweetheart?" she asked carefully. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." I could barely keep the disgust out of my voice. She stood still, eyes dull with dread. The knife dropped into the sink with a metallic clatter. Dad finally looked over, then went back to his beer. You saw it?" Mom whispered. "Is that why you never let me near that place?" I snapped. "Because you knew?" Mom didn't answer. She just gestured toward the dining table. "Honey, come sit down." "Marie," my dad said without turning. The warning in his voice was subtle, but it was there. "I'm telling her," Mom said, firm but quiet. "Marie, you know the rule." Dad snapped, standing now. His face was flushed, jaw clenched. "She's already seen it. It's too late now," she snapped, then turned back to me. "Sit down, sweetie." Dad hesitated, then sat. He was still a drunk, but at least he's a reasonable one for now. I lowered myself into the chair across from her, still shaking. "What rule is he talking about?" She hesitated, fingers trembling against the edge of the table. Her voice came out soft and brittle. "Mr. Vardy is a very nice man." I stared at her. "Ooh, Mr. Renley," she corrected herself. "He calls himself Renley now, but that's not his real name." She reached out for my hand, but I pulled away. Something in her expression shifted. Shame. Like she'd been carrying this too long. Our town, it's special in ways I wish it weren't. "What the hell does that mean?" I asked. "We all came from," she paused. I didn't need her to finish. I already knew. My voice cracked when I asked, "How does it get pregnant?" The air went still. Even the TV had gone quiet. Dad turned toward her slowly. "Marie," he said. Just her name, but the threat in it was unmistakable. She didn't break eye contact with me. With a voice so soft, she said, "Mr. Vardy." The silence was heavier than anything I'd seen inside that house. "The women here, we can't carry children. It's not in us." I swallowed. My throat burned. "Is that why I didn't finish the question. She nodded, eyes down. Asterisk, so I was never broken. I was built this way, Star. All the children here, she said, they were given to us by him. A wave of nausea rolled through me. My hands were slick with sweat. "There's a rule," she continued. "Once adopted, we weren't allowed to tell you. Not a word. And you were never to go near that house." She paused. Her voice dropped further. "If he finds out, he punishes the family." "What kind of punishment?" I asked, barely managing the words. Her lips tightened. She stared into her lap. There was a family on Rosewood. The Elkins. Their little girl, Ruthie, went up to the house. One night, they woke up and she was gone. No broken windows. No footprints. Just her bed, still warm, and a note on her pillow. Her hand was shaking. It said, "Asterisk, you broke the rules. You can have her back when she forgets." Asterisk, my mouth went dry. "Jesus, they waited 7 years," she said. Then one morning, she was there, sitting on the porch. Same age, same dress, same pigtails. She exhaled. They ran to her, tried to hug her, but she pulled away and asked, "Are you my new mommy and daddy?" My stomach dropped. She didn't remember them? I asked. "No, but she did remember someone," my mother said. She said she had a friend, a nice one, said his name was VV. A thick silence settled in. I sat there taking everything in when knock, knock, knock. Asterisk, asterisk, my mother jolted. My father froze mid-breath. He stood slowly and walked to the door like a man on his way to the gallows. When he opened it, the color drained from his face. "Who the hell?" He stopped. Dead quiet. Standing in the doorway, smiling politely, was Mr. Renley. That same spotless suit, that same gentle smile. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. Without a word, he stepped inside and walked to the dining table. His hands came to rest lightly on my shoulders. I flinched. Dad joined us, suddenly sober. "What can we do for you, Mr. Vardy?" Renley didn't answer right away. He just looked between us. Finally, he spoke, calm, pleasant, like this was just a visit between old friends. "You all know why I'm here," he said, smiling wider. "So, let's have a little chat." That's it for today's creepy Reddit tales. Before we go, I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you for watching, liking, and sticking around. You guys keep this channel going, and I'll be back soon with more stories that'll make your skin crawl. Drop a comment if you've got your own spooky tale to share, and I'll see you in the next one.